If you don't lay the groundwork to handle the next, season of growth, your customer service, your quality is going to drop. If I can tell that the person I'm talking with is just trying to sell me on something, I'm out. But if it's like they're asking intelligent questions about how to arrive at something that's going to be excellent, then I'm like, all right, now we're on the same page. Be quick to adapt. The ones who can see what's happening in the market and change quickly to that, stay in business.
This is Between Two Pixels, the podcast for anyone who wants to reach and connect with their audience through content and marketing.
Welcome to the Between Two Pixels podcast. We have a special guest today, Nathan Martin. Nathan is the founder and CEO of Go Forth Goods. And he's got a great story about his company and a cool origin story. And we're going to get into topics around brand positioning, audience, tribes, all kinds of cool stuff. So appreciate you being here, Nathan. And we're excited to hear you tell your story and a little bit about business.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
I think it'd be great to start with the origin story. You've got a really interesting, it's kind of in some ways like a classic case of, a person gets frustrated with a product that doesn't exist and decides to kind of do it on their own, but you were kind of in marketing. And so I think it'd be great if you could just kind of start with what was the tension that kind of created Go Forth Goods.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a bag. Well, not we. So I had a bag that broke. I was heading out to Disney. It was back in 2014 with my family, and zipped up the bag, and it just ripped right down the side of the bag. And just out of that frustration of like, man, why is everything made so cheaply? I said, I'm going to get a nice bag. And so my wife was driving down to Disney. It's a different story. I was sitting in the passenger seat. But anyway, so, I'm looking for a new bag. Can't find what I'm looking for. Everything's either incredibly expensive and high fashion, kind of gaudy, that's not me. Or it was cheaply made. And so I started thinking, gosh, you know what? Like I see this bag over here. And I see this bag over here. And what if I took elements of this one and put it together with this one and made like my perfect bag and made it with high quality materials and all that kind of stuff. And I just had this thought like, you know what? I could probably make my own bag, make it exactly the way I want. And and so I started looking into, this is all while we're heading down to Disney. And, I start looking into like, all right, well, how hard is it to make a bag and that kind of stuff? And I'm like, it's not that hard. Like I can do this. And so then as I was, kind of in that sort of mode, kind of switch back to owned a marketing firm for the past 15 years, was getting tired of being in that industry, was already looking for an exit out of that. And so my wheels were already turning like, this could be the next business that gets me out of marketing, that kind of stuff. And so, I just started thinking about like, is there a market for this? Out there, could this be the next thing? And that's kind of what started, us down that path. And it was a very, very quick transition. Got back from Disney, already had business cards, a logo, branding, everything done in Disney. And then bought a hide at a local leather shop and then made a wallet first, wanted to start small, whatever. And it took me about 2 weeks to make a decent wallet. I showed some friends and I had 10 orders just like that. And that's how I knew like, all right, I got something here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have ideas that they kind of want to try and they think might work.
Right.
How did you know that there was a market for this other than the research you did in Disney? Or did you it was just like, I believe in it. I'm going to go and see what happens.
Yeah. So I'll kind of step back once again. So before I started Go Forth Goods, I had started another company that was a complete failure. But I learned everything that I needed to make Go Forth Goods successful. And that was, I made a lot of assumptions based upon research, for that second company that turned out to be completely wrong.
Okay.
And so when I was going in to start Go Forth Goods, I said, all right, you've got to start small, invest a tiny amount of time and money into it, and then test. And if it works, move forward. If it doesn't, just stop. Because I spent 2 years and a ton of time developing the second company that never made a dime. And so I was like, all right, let's create a wallet. If someone will buy the wallet, then I'll do the next thing. And so that's what I did. As I started small and then it started building until, I was able to step away from the marketing. So
that's cool. So in in software terms would be like minimum viable product kind of thing.
Yeah,
right.
correct.
Like get
Yeah,
something. That's
exactly. Yep.
great. So you started with a wallet. What were the aspirations for the whole product line, or was it like, obviously it was a bag. There was a future in bags. You just use a wallet to test it.
Right.
Right. Did you identify a market? Like, I'm going to go after adventure kind of men who's like looking for a nice bag, or is it like more female oriented? Like, what was the market you're going after?
So originally the idea was me. I'm basically going to sell to myself. People like me that want a high quality product, love, the outdoors, love adventure, and want something that's going to last, like products that our grandparents used to buy. Yeah. And so that was kind of the thing. So I started out with a wallet, then a belt, then like this mason jar wrapped mug. It was leather wrapped around a mason jar. And then there was like a key fob. And I think that was the four core products that we did for like the first 5 or 6 months. And then we got into making bags. And at first the bags were all hand punched, hand stitched, because I didn't have a sewing machine at that point. So it was crazy, time consuming, but incredibly durable. Whoever has those first bags, they're never going to die.
Yeah.
So
you started to get some momentum. What did you do with your day job, right? Did that stop right away?
No.
Or did you kind of keep
so
going?
So the safest way of building a business is to do it part-time, in your free time until it's making enough to replace your main income. That's what I've always done. And so I would work my marketing company from 9 to 5. I'd take off from 5 to 9 to hang out with the family. And then from 9 till midnight, 7 days a week, I was hustling. I was down in my basement making leather goods. So, yeah.
And what did other people in your family and friends think? Were they believers in it? Were they just like, oh, that's Nathan kind of doing his thing? Yeah. We'll see what happens. What was that like?
So at first it was like, oh, that's cute. Like, oh, that's fun. Yeah. And so my wife has always been my harshest critic, which is fantastic. You always want your wife to be the, most honest, tell you, look, that sucks. Yeah. Like, don't do that, And so whenever I would do design, marketing stuff, I'd bring her something, she was always like, I don't know. Have you thought about this? Really, really always gave me a lot of criticism, whatnot. And so I brought her, number one, I told her, hey, I'm going to start a leather goods company. She was like, oh, okay, that's fun. And I don't think she thought it was actually going to amount to anything. It was just like, he's always doing something new, Yeah. So I brought her the first wallet, and I remember very, very distinctly bringing it to her. And she goes, wait, what? Did you make that? And I said, oh, wait, I've got something now. Yeah. Okay. So that was cool. Okay. Friends and family, jumped on it like, wow, this is amazing. There was a lot of instant traction, which was something that really kind of told me, I think I've got something good here that can go somewhere. So, yeah.
Now take us forward into now. What's the state of the company, your product line, whatever you want to share about size of the company, stuff like that, just so we all kind of know context. And how long ago was that?
That was 11 years ago.
11 years ago. Yeah, okay. And so now what's the state of the business now?
So we do about 10,000 bags a year. I've got 7 full-time employees in a 4,000 square foot shop. It's all made in America right here in Marietta. And so it's pretty awesome. So product line. So I haven't counted up how many products we have at this point. It's over 100. So we have core products is probably about 50. Then we have a bunch of accessories and other items that, are not our core products. Okay. But everything from, wallets and belts to briefcases, duffel bags, totes and crossbodies and backpacks. Yeah. So everything, it's mainly travel and lifestyle brand, that kind of stuff. Anything you're going to take to work or everyday carry, that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, I thought that was interesting when we first met, talking about where do you consider yourselves, like what industry? I mean, obviously leather goods, but you're kind of intentionally non-fashion. I don't know if that's fair to say, but you're not as ornamental, or it's all about durability and all that. Right. Explain that part of it. Like, where do you fit within all of the other bag companies and options and things like that from a brand standpoint?
I mean, so technically, right, if you're going to put us into a box, we technically are fashion. I just don't like that, because fashion, you tend to think of that as it's all about looks, right? It's all about status. It's all about and we want ours to be about function. The whole reason why I started the company is that I had a bag that broke. I wanted a bag that was useful, and it wasn't. It broke. So that's kind of where we see ourselves as something that's We're minimalistic, very simple. You know, we don't have a ton of pockets on our bags. We have just what you need, you know, 1 or 2 pockets, that kind of stuff. So it just keeps things to where it's, you know, it's functional over design. So that's the reason why I don't like to put us in the fashion category. So, but,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about, about your customers? Obviously you know a lot about them, but what they obviously tend to be maybe people that want something that looks good, is durable, fashionable. It seems like there's a lot of different characteristics or qualities they appreciate, right? So, so what is it that they value the most that you've found that connects them with the Go Forth Goods brand?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are truly 100% American made, and they want to support an American made brand. Because we're not the cheapest out there. You can get a cheaper bag. You can't get a cheaper bag for, you know, that's high quality, but you can buy a cheaper bag. And so for them, a lot of them, it's, I want something that I know is going to last and that is functional, but that isn't, you know, high fashion, which is the whole reason why I created the brand. So it's fantastic when you get to be your own customer, if you will, and then, you know, find out that other people love the same thing. So yeah, that's very rewarding. So
cool.
Yeah.
Are there certain things that, like, as a principled brand, I know that you give back and have certain things that are there certain things that you just say, we will never do this, and we will always do that, from a brand standpoint or production or something? Kind of what are the core principles that are irrefutable as you kind of grow and expand? Yeah,
I think that we don't want to lose our core sort of functionality, you know, is key type of element. So we've had a lot of people that have asked us, you know, can we do basically like a Louis Vuitton bag, you know? And we're like, no, like, just go buy the Louis Vuitton bag. Yeah. Like we know who we are, and we want to stay in that lane, if you will, of creating simple, high quality bags that are functional. Okay. So, yeah. So you bring up Louis Vuitton. Would you say that's has more ornamental design elements to it? Is that why is that the contrast you're referring to? Yes, correct. Okay. Yeah. That's where, you know, that's high fashion type of stuff where it's all about, you know, the design, and people want to be seen with that, and they have logos all over it. And, you know, we have very, very tiny logos, and in many cases, if it can just be put on the handle, our logo's just this small little logo on the handle, and that's it. So, cause that's what we're all about. So. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept, Seth Godin and others have mentioned, like developing a tribe. So there's a whole book about that and all that. You're probably familiar with it, but that's impressed me, is just how, and I'd love to hear if that was intentional, but you have a core group of fans that just buy a lot of bags and they love it. They talk about it. They're super active. They tell you exactly what they think and what they feel. Exactly. Right? Yeah. Sometimes a little too much. Yeah. Is that something, I mean, I think a lot of brands would kill for it. I mean, that's what you want, is people that are fans and are telling other people about it, and coming back and buying multiple, because technically, functionally, you don't necessarily need that many bags. No, 100%. Right? Yeah. But they're buying multiple bags. So did that come about organically, or how did that evolve? It was totally organic. It wasn't something that we were trying to do. And I think that's how good stuff always happens, right? Is whenever you're trying to force something to happen, it usually, it's a struggle, or it's sort of like this weird baby that, you know, looks ugly. And, you know, so I feel like, and I think that book, I've never read it because I don't really read, but I think if I understand, my next question about it, what kind of research you do, go ahead. So, well, I do read, but I don't read books, but is that when you do things right, you know, from the foundation, things happen naturally the way they should. Right? You build a brand where people love you and come back and want to buy more and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what we've always wanted to do. We wanted to build a brand. And when you build a brand, you're looking at, like, how do I want to be treated if I'm a customer? And that's, you know, a conversation that I have with my employees, that I have with my GM, you know, all the time, is switch it around. Is this the way you'd want to be treated in this situation? Yeah. And if the answer is no, then we have a problem. And so we're always trying to answer that is, you know, how can I make this experience? How can I make this product better? And so when people come to us with feedback and say, hey, this is a problem or whatever, we listen and we say, you know what, you're right. I didn't think about that, but you're right. And we make a change. And so because of that, I think that's why we have such loyal fans that come back and buy and buy and buy and buy. So yeah, that's great. Yeah. So are you actively fostering that community that happened organically, or
Or do you keep it organic and just say, hey, we're going to do you provide them with a platform? Do you give them special treatment? Like, how do you foster that?
Yeah.
Or do you just let it happen?
So the Facebook group was created by, our fans, and they called themselves the GFG groupies, which we find, quite humorous. And then when I was told actually by a customer, this was back in 2020, and they said, oh, by the way, you've got this Facebook group with, hundreds of people in it. And I was like, oh, weird. That's okay. All right.
Funny. Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I want to be a part of it. And mainly in the beginning, it was, I want to make sure no one's talking bad about us. I want to make sure that, or someone's not giving misinformation. So I want to be in there so I can make sure that the conversation is correct about our company and that kind of stuff. And so it started to grow pretty quickly, and there's like 4,000 people in there now. And, but so I'm in there daily, answering questions and, asking questions, and just, and they think it's fantastic. They're like, what? The founder and the CEO is like personally interacting with us in a Facebook group and answering our questions and blah, blah, blah. So that's a huge kind of a thing. So I'll run polls. I'll say, hey, what should we do with our next, launch? And I'll get all their feedback, and then we'll launch exactly what they asked for. And it's wildly successful because we're giving them exactly what they want. And I think that's also what fosters, people coming back and saying, wow, I want to buy another bag because, they're getting something new, and we have the most customizations because we make to order out of any bag company on the face of the planet that we're aware of. Yeah. And so that helps too, because it's basically like Build-A-Bear for bags. So it's like, oh, I can put this little cute hat on it, and I can put this little scarf, and I can, and so they're able to build this perfect bag. And so, they can have 15 of the same bag, just like a bear, but it looks different and it feels different. So this is for date night when I wear red. This is date night and so I think that's why we have so many that come back and buy. So,
and there's obviously times, like you said, that you say no. How do you do that? Is that a gut instinct thing? Kind of, you run it against your core principles? Do you talk to other people? Do you do research?
Yeah.
What's the process like?
So for the most part, does that align with the brand? Is that something that fits within who we are? And that does come down to what I want in many cases. And there have been some things where, like, for instance, we were asked years ago to create a fanny pack. And I'm like, oh my God, fanny packs are ugly and they're stupid. And like, why would I? And so, but they kept begging. It was like daily I was getting people emailing, I wish you had a fanny pack. I wish you had a fanny pack. And I was like, oh my God. So I finally was like, all right,
take to Disney.
I'm going to create, yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I'm going to create a fanny pack, but I'm not going to create your typical, like The Rock, with his, I'm going to create my own unique bag. And so we did. And so we have that. So that's sort of like, if the customer's asking, it's stupid to not give them that, but we want to do it inside of the Go Forth Goods brand. Yeah. And so that's kind of how we look at it. But yeah, and then there's some things that, like, for instance, we've been asked to do like a zippered wallet with 15 pockets like you typically see. Well, that just doesn't fit with the quality of our leather, our zippers. Like it would be this phone book. Yeah. So there's just some products that just functionally can't be made the way we construct things. And so we want to fit those things into like, all right, like this is just who we are. So yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself either actively or passively discouraging certain customers? I mean, there's certain customers where you're just like, not that you don't want their business, but you almost don't want their business because maybe they just don't fit the ethos, or maybe there's a better brand that can suit them, or they're asking for too much, or something like that. I mean, how much do you do that actively, or are you just like?
No, a lot of times if we say no, it's either because it's something that we don't feel like fits the brand, and we let things play out naturally. So because what we found is that a lot of times people are like, well, this is what I want, and they're like, okay, well, that's cool. But then you're like, but we have all these great offers, these great options. And so a lot of times if you don't push them away, they still find something that they love. Yeah. And so you still win a customer, even though they thought this is exactly what I want. And so we're like, look, here we are. If we're a good fit, then choose us. If not, our feelings aren't hurt and we're not upset, we're just not a good fit.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the future. Can you share a little bit about your dreams and aspirations for the brand and the company? I mean, do you want to grow a ton? I mean, do you want to be a big company? And then there's a series of questions that follow about scale. Yeah. Taking what you have, it's basically replicating you, and the difficulty I know that's really challenging for any founder who's very involved is like, how do you scale that?
Yeah.
If you can't be involved with everything. So
Yeah,
first question is really, what's your vision for the future? Is it to remain kind of where you are, or do you want to be a big company?
We would love to be a household name
Okay.
in leather goods. That's kind of always been the vision from the beginning. What that looks like in terms of actual revenue per year, growth, whatever, I don't know what that looks like to be a household name, to be honest with you. To be a $200 million company is scary. I don't know that I want to own a $200 million company. That seems like a lot of work. So for me, I just want to make sure that as we grow, that everything that we founded the company on stays true. So I want our customer service, our quality, to be, excellent and superb. And so if growing too fast or getting to this certain level were to jeopardize that, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So if that answers your question.
It does. Yeah. So
yeah.
you found a product, like what's the product market fit is there. You
Yeah.
validated that. You've got a core brand and
Yeah.
principles. You got a purpose and a mission.
Yep.
And it's almost like the future, like it's like an open hand towards the future. We might be big, we might not be big, but you seem relatively content knowing that that's the way it's going to go. But I'm not going to sacrifice these things to kind of for the sake of growth. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like that if growth is your main objective in terms of like we want to be, the biggest whatever, typically what suffers is the quality of customer service and the product to get there in order to do that. And you hear people say, man, I used to love that brand, and now I don't. And that to me is not worth it, is to grow to the point to where your brand loyalty goes out the window because, well, yeah, we're a $200 million company and we sold and whatever. And that's just never been the idea behind the company. So I would rather have a solid brand that's making good profit, that has awesome brand loyalty, and slowly grow. I mean, grow by 20, 25% every year and just continue to reach those goals until, retirement, hand it down to a kid, who knows?
Yeah.
So, figure it out.
Have you had situations where you've had to either intentionally slow or stop growth or not done something that you knew would grow the business because maybe you didn't have some of those things in place?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, every few years is basically like a restructuring, because if you don't lay the groundwork, to handle the next, season of growth, then your customer service, your quality is going to drop. So, if we were a company that was just, I was designing and then I was just having the bags made overseas somewhere or whatever, then you can scale pretty fast because all you have to do is have the capital to buy your product and then make sure that company is doing what they're supposed to be doing with, making it the same quality and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But with us, I'm hiring, training people on how to make leather goods. And, there's no school here for like leather goods, leather crafting. So every employee that comes to work for us, we're training them from the ground up on how to do it. So that takes 6 months to a year to train someone and get them to where, they're proficient and can actually, do the full job. Yeah. And so you can't grow fast that way. You have to grow very, very methodically. And so there's been several years where we're like, all right, we're just going to maintain at this level, but we're going to hire 2 new employees, get them trained up. We're going to maybe move into a new building. We're going to get some new machinery to make us more efficient, whatever, and in those years, you're basically building infrastructure. So the next 3 years you can, scale another 25%. So.
Yeah. And so it seems like, is it difficult to predict demand? Like how much I know bigger companies that have a lot of analytics and a lot more invested to understand the market. For you, I guess kind of have to be like looking at trends and then saying like, where do I think we're going to go? Right.
Yeah.
Is that it? Or how is that? How do you make those decisions?
For us, we know that we can handle about 25%, year over year growth before it causes issues. And so we're very, very methodical about how much ad spend we're putting into Facebook, how much that kind of stuff. And if we see that, oh my God, it's going faster than we need to, then we just back it down a little bit so that we stop the growth so that we can handle it and do it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So speaking of Facebook, what all do you do for marketing and outreach in terms of getting the story out there?
So the main for new customer acquisition outside of, just organic, is with Meta, Facebook and Instagram. We do a little bit with Google, but mainly it's Facebook and Instagram. So, and right now, especially with an e-commerce site, direct to consumer, that really is your best bang for buck. Okay. So across the board, we haven't found any other channel that provides that much direct feedback, and, conversion. So, yeah.
And in terms of storytelling, you've got a really compelling story. So is that the focus for your marketing, or can you talk a little bit about how you construct the message and things like that?
So the main thing that we found works in converting people is the high quality American made, lifetime guaranteed, functional bag that looks good and meets your needs. Yeah, basically. And we have the most customizations to make the bag exactly what you want it to be. So and that's really what connects with people, because you can't find that out there. It just doesn't exist. So,
and the Go Forth Goods, you can talk a little bit about how that, I don't think you mentioned how that name came about.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious as to how that fits into the marketing message as well. So
yeah.
Can you tell that story, how that came about?
Yeah. So I was thinking about, what do I want to name this company? And I wanted it to be something unique. The past companies that I had, run, was just my initials, with, what we did after it, pretty boring. And, it got the job done, but there was no creative, anything to it. And so I really wanted something with this brand. I really felt like in the beginning, like this has the ability to be something big, be something great. And I really want to put something in there that could have like a major impact on the world. And so something that's been a big part of my life for years is going forth and doing good, and just giving back and making the world a better place as we go. And this idea of like, it doesn't matter who you are or what your sphere of influence is, you can make a difference in the world around you, versus like some people are like, well, I need to create like this gigantic, nonprofit or whatever. No, you can make a difference just in your little circle. So that's kind of like my passion. And so I just was thinking like, man, like what do I really care about? Yeah. Go forth and do good, Yeah. And I was like, Go Forth Goods. Oh, wait, Go Forth Goods. And then of course, like anyone creating a business, goforthgoods.com. Holy crap, goforthgoods.com isn't taken?
The GoDaddy landing page?
Yes. Yeah. And so when I found that, like, wow, okay, that's it. And so that's our whole sort of business model is, go forth and do good, and we hope that our bags, as we, are sending them out, have this message of no matter where you go or who you, interact with, you can make a difference. So, yeah.
And how does that tie into your storytelling? You didn't mention initially.
Yeah.
In terms of the messaging, the story you tell, is that the lead? Is it a secondary? Is it, do you see people as seeing that as important in their purchase decision, or how's that fit in?
It's interesting. Early on, it was something that we spoke about, a lot more. We haven't really made it a focus a whole lot. I think we've talked about bringing it back into the fold. And I think a lot of that has to do with marketing companies and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And it gets lost in the weeds, if you will, of like, we got to hit them with a core message and, that core message. Yeah. Yeah. And so, it gets lost sometimes. So we probably should do a better job of bringing that back into the fold. I've had all these great ideas of how we could intertwine that into the marketing, and then it comes back down to, look, we have a nice bag that fits your needs. So
right. Yeah. Well, I think the focus, I mean, you definitely, it's refreshing because of your focus on functionality in the space that you're in, because you don't hear a lot about that. It's mostly about the fashion side of it. So
yeah,
I think that's definitely interesting. And I think from what I've read in our experience, there's certain people that buy because of that, but a lot of people, I think probably some of your loyalty comes from that more so than the initial purchase, if that makes sense. So that once people kind of discover that, like, oh, this is another great reason. Like, I feel even better about my purchase. I'm going to tell somebody else about it. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to find out if you hear that from the groupies, do they give you feedback on
they do
that? I assume that's important, but I wonder if they tell you like, that's why I bought your bag, because
some have said that, but a lot of it's exactly what you said, where they go, this is just another reason why we love Go Forth Goods is because, they give back and whatever. And we do it like, we have a thank you card, that we give with every product, and there's a message about it in there. And like, we have our core video that's like our company video, and it talks a lot about that. We send that out. That's in advertising. So it's intertwined with stuff, but we don't have like a, video that's like, hey, this is what Go For It's Good is about,
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Love to hear a little bit about your take on the future. You talked about where you want to go as a company, but you're kind of open-handed about that. So how is the world and your industry changing? I guess, you can answer it however you want to. In the past 3 years, in the past 5 years, how do you see it changing?
Sure.
Obviously in marketing, we look at AI and authenticity and all that stuff is changing. And then, all the data protection and privacy stuff, there's all kinds of stuff, but it almost feels like some of it, and obviously tariffs, but you don't have to deal with that stuff. So it feels like some of those things you're relatively insulated from, right? Yeah. But how is your world changing, and how do you see it changing in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, what I think is great is that the fashion industry as a whole, which we, talked about, unfortunately fitting into, whether we like it or not, it is starting to change dramatically as people start to look at like, fast fashion, right? And how is that impacting the world, And so a lot of people are starting to kind of realize like, man, maybe this isn't the best thing that I buy, a bunch of cheap stuff and then, throw it into a landfill type of a thing. And so they're looking more at like, how can I buy, heritage quality stuff again that can last a lifetime. And so I think we just happened to start our company at the perfect time to align with that, as well as now you have these tariffs. So it's encouraging American made, which we've been doing for 11 years. So there's all these brands now that are like, oh, we should start manufacturing in America again. And we're like, been there.
That's funny. Yeah.
So I think it's just a perfect alignment. So for us, I think that everything is actually starting to move towards what we're already doing, which I think is fantastic. So it puts us in a great position of being like, we were already here. We didn't do it because everyone else is doing it. We did it because this is what we felt was the best thing to do.
Yeah, that's great. So, it's almost like you were countercultural in some ways at the time and kind of going against what the traditional economics, an industry would say. And then all of a sudden you're like, we've been here for 11 years doing this thing. So,
well, and we've had, it's been interesting. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit, there was a lot more American made brands out there. And a lot of people that we actually knew in the industry that kind of started around the same time as us and that kind of stuff that were American made, they all jumped ship because it was too hard, to keep employees and to do that whole American manufacturing. And so all of them are now manufacturing either Mexico or, some other place. And so, even though we did call a couple of, manufacturers in Mexico, we went down that, path to go, maybe we should, but we were like, no, like we want to stay true to what we started and what was our founding, no matter how hard it is, no matter how slow our growth may be in that channel, because we believe in this and we believe that it's the right thing to do. And so that's kind of our motto is I'd rather grow slow and steady and stay true to the American made, so.
That's great. So how many times, can you tell me about one or two times when, I guess is a question I'll phrase like this. When did you consider quitting? Because I know I'm sure at points you did, right? You've been doing this for 11 years and I've been there. Like, so it's not a matter of have you ever, it's when were you the closest and how did you get through that? Because a lot of people don't. Yeah, they get close to it and then they end up giving up or they're forced to. But I'd love to hear a little bit about those points because it hasn't all been roses, I'm sure.
So oddly enough, I actually with this company have not had that thought.
Good.
I've had other thoughts of like firing customers and people and all that kind of stuff, but never giving up on the company. It's always been I've got something here that's working, and the challenges are more in how do I scale it effectively, excuse me, and not burn out, how do I make sure that I spend the time with the family that I need to, so that they, aren't like, hey, like where was dad all these years? Cause he was building a brand, and as well as, like keeping the customer happy, keeping employees happy and all that kind of stuff. So that's been the main challenge in that, but it's actually been pretty amazing over the years.
That's great. Yeah. That's good. So I want to talk for a minute about social media because you have a strong community, you've got a tribe. So obviously that suggests, well, there's probably a big social media component to it, right? Is that, how do you tell the story there and how do you mix paid and organic in your brand marketing?
Yeah. So early on, social media was unbelievably powerful tool for growing the company. We didn't even use, any advertising dollars until, like 2019, just because we didn't have to. We were growing at a rate that we could handle just by organic social. And so we were posting pretty regularly, just basically whatever content we can come up with, new products, new stuff, pictures, videos, whatever. And then of course things started to change towards video. And it was like, you have to create a reel in order to get any traction. Yeah. And so what we found is that, as a business owner, I'm sure you understand, you prioritize what works and you pretty much just, leave everything else that's not working to the gutter. And so we found that like we were posting like once a week, just like an image that, we took and talking about like, yeah, this is the best bag, you should get it, type of thing. And our engagement was dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. But I was like, well, whenever we make a post, no one likes it and no one engages in it. So what's the point of making posts? It's stupid, But we were talking with our, Facebook advertising company and they're like, yeah, but when we send ads to someone, they're going to go and check your socials and they're going to base what they see in that socials based upon whether or not you're a credible company that they should buy from. So if you have this lame content, then they're going to go, oh, maybe this company's, just drop shipping, or maybe, they're dying and they had some good content here, but now they don't. But I was like, well, I don't have time to make reels all day long. Who has time for that? Like no one has time for that. And so that's when we, basically reached out to you guys and we're like, hey, help us. We need better content and we don't have time to make reels all day long. Yeah. And so that's, and that's been fantastic to be able to have a company come in and really think of things ahead of time. That's been a really great thing about working with Between Pixels is that, we're not just like, oh crap, I need to make a post today. Let me look through my album of photos and, we're actually like coming up with ideas like months in advance and going like, hey, let's think this out. Like what is our customer actually needing to see that we can educate them on? And the feedback has been unbelievable from our customer base of, they just love the videos. They love the content and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really helped get us back to that level of credibility is really what it comes down to. Cause I don't think we're getting a lot of business from social. Yeah. It's just not where you're getting business from nowadays. Well, okay. Or I should say organic. Yeah. Yeah. That's just not a big driver of growing your audience anymore, but it's a huge element in the whole circle of credibility when you get a new customer coming in. And we've also been able to use the content to be able to, advertise with and whatnot. So it has a double purpose, which has been fantastic. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Do you find, I guess, within the feedback in the community and elsewhere, the brand storytelling more or less impactful than like what I would consider maybe just like product features, like here's a new bag and here's why it's great kind of thing versus like here's the meaning of the brand and why we exist and all that. How do you balance that in social? Yeah.
I definitely think it's important you have, a little bit of everything. If you have too much of one thing, they're not getting the whole picture. So having the whole picture of like, all right, here's our products and here's our breakdown of why you want to buy this product and the features and everything. They need that, but they also need like, why should I choose you? Which is the whole storytelling brand aspect of it as well. And then you have, like we just did a post, which is probably the most traction we've gotten in an organic post in like years. And that was of look at how our bags age. And we just took a bunch of pictures of old bags that had worn, over 8+ years. Yeah. And then we, paired it with a new bag. And that's gotten the most traction of anything recently, which is really cool. They just love to see, oh man, that's how their bags age. And so it got the most comments, it got the most likes. So, yeah.
So I think you mentioned in some cases, social media, I think the tendency is to see it just like any other channel that is transactional. And I put out content, I tell people about my product, they click and they buy it.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
But I think, and I think we know it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah.
So if that's not necessarily happening all the time, although sometimes it can, how do you measure a win in social? What do you consider to be success, and how does that fit into the longer term vision of the brand?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's that holistic approach where, we know that our customers, we're not an impulse buy. Our average order value is $300. And so, most people aren't just clicking on an ad and just buying a $300 bag.
Just happen to be looking for a $300 bag. Right now.
It's just not. So we know that people are looking at competition, that they're researching, that they're looking at all these different things, and they need multiple touch points before they're going to make that decision that we're the right brand for them or whatever. And so in that, social's a big part of that organic that shows, hey, we're here and we're doing things intentionally. And, showing the behind the scenes has been something that really kind of gets people to feel like that they want to be a part of the same thing. So it's one thing to say we're American made, right? It's another thing to show the employees actually making in our little shop in Marietta. And so that really helps people to go like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I want to buy into this. And so I think that's what organic social is so important, at least for us, in order to bring in those new customers. So
that's great. Yeah. And then you mentioned Meta, obviously Instagram.
Yep.
Other channels that you've expanded into, like that you and our team are kind of considering for the future, and how that's changed, how the channel mix has changed, considering your audience, who is average age of your audience, your customers,
35 to 70.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're
it's very broad
in the TikTok.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that, TikTok kind of spans multiple generations and stuff.
Yeah.
How do you feel about those channels?
So we just recently started posting on TikTok. I was a big, no to TikTok in the beginning. And I guess I've been worn down, into, into you need to be on TikTok type of thing. So we are on it. I honestly don't know how well it's doing or if it's doing anything at all. So
we'll see.
I think we're posting there. There's that.
TBD. So we'll have to do another one in 6 months and then we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what the growth has been.
Yeah, that's great.
We do Google AdWords. We're naturally and organically listed in Google for different things, an SEO type of a scenario, but never really paid for that. It's just sort of all organic. And nothing else. We've talked about possibly doing like streaming ads on like TV. We thought maybe that would work. We haven't tested it yet, but that would kind of be fun for the future. Maybe magazines. I don't know. Is magazines dead? I think they're kind of dead. Are they coming back?
We do some, but very specific industry publications and things like that. In some cases, it makes sense. In some cases, honestly, it's just because it can be so cheap. I mean, they're like giving stuff away.
Oh well,
so
sign me up.
It really depends, but it is difficult to measure unless obviously we do.
You have to do
QR
some
codes
code
and
or
stuff like that, which the real. I think expecting somebody to read a magazine, see an ad, click on a QR code,
or a landing page.
Success that way.
Or a special landing page that's / the magazine.
We've done that too. But it's hard to say. As part of the mix, sometimes we recommend it, but it's not for every.
Well, and I think as we grow and we expand and we have more marketing dollars to reach new people, I think that's when we'll start to expand into some of those other markets. Right now we're slow and controlled. We know what we can get out of Meta. So it kind of seems silly to throw money at something else when, so.
Something we've seen successful is having almost setting aside a percentage of the budget, like 10%, 15% of your marketing budget for like
testing.
Experimental stuff.
You
know, and that's really kind of earmarked for stuff that because inevitably there are things that you can't really prove. If you can't prove it yet, like once you prove it, that means you're not necessarily on the leading edge of it because it's already been proven and everyone's in there, right? So it's crowded. So a lot of times it pays to get a little bit of a testing of the waters kind of approach to some of that stuff.
On new stuff.
Yeah.
No,
new channels and things like that. But
it's awesome.
The brand a lot, as you said, the brand represents you in a lot of ways. You're the initial customer. You're a marketing guy. You're a creative. You're a craftsman. All of those things, right? So, but you're working with companies like ours and other companies who have to create things on your behalf that represent you, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's tension there. How do how do you do that in a way where, because obviously as you grow, you're going to have a smaller percentage of the stuff has your hand on it, right? So so how has that gone, and how do you do that transition? And how do you plan on doing it moving into the future as you grow?
I think it's just good communication. I think that's the key, and being understanding of maybe your lack of ability to communicate what you thought you communicated, and then being able to go back and say, all right, like this didn't hit the mark. How can we make it hit the mark? And then making it right. I think that's the key, because, no one's perfect. No one can figure things out on the first try usually. And so I think that's the beauty of a partnership, is if both people are like, hey, we want the best and we're willing to do whatever it takes to get there, then you get there. Yeah. So
in thinking about how a founder looks for outside agencies, whether it's in what we do or PR or anything else. What is important to you? So you kind of mentioned that shared commitment to like, we're just here. We're both here to help the brand, right? So we want your company to grow, and that's our whole purpose. But what else was and is important, do you think, when you're looking to partners?
So for me, that same communication is key. So if I can tell that the person I'm talking with in the sales, process is just trying to sell me on something, or they're trying to convince me of something, I'm out. Like, I'm gone. But if it's like they're listening, and I can tell that they're asking intelligent questions about how to arrive at something that's going to be excellent, then I'm like, all right, now we're on the same page. I know you can help me. And you got to look at the quality of their work. If what you're wanting, they've never produced, walk away. You're not going to get a good result. But if you've seen them create good work and you're like, all right, good, I know they can create the same thing. Now it's about like, do you understand what I need? And that comes with that listening and communication process, where I've got to be good enough to communicate exactly what I'm looking for so they can execute on that. So,
Okay. One more question on the social media side. Do you have metrics that you track? Some of the stuff is harder to track than others, but what do you look at in terms of numbers to know what content's working, whether the program itself is working, all that kind of thing?
Honestly, that's one of the most frustrating things about marketing with Facebook. And to be honest with you, as a whole, because everyone is trying to take credit that they got you the sale. Everyone, Meta's doing it, Klaviyo's doing it. Like, everyone's like, that was me. And I'm like, wait a second. And in some aspects that can be true, right? Because different touch points, maybe it was a Meta ad at first, then, they signed up for our email list, and then we served them with a retargeting ad, whatever that, full circle. Then they went onto our social media, saw a cool video, and then they finally got closed, with a Klaviyo thing. So Klaviyo's like, we did that. Meta's like, we did that,
attribution.
But it's hard. It really is. It's hard to know where did it actually come from, and what's actually accurate, who's taking more credit than they should, so we have Triple Whale, which is a separate software that's a little more granular with that. It gives you a little bit more information, but I still don't think it's accurate. So honestly, half the time it's just, are we growing? Great. Then what we're doing is working.
It's working, right.
Yeah. So I think we made a bad decision earlier this year that we kind of had to change course and direction. And that was, we made some assumptions based upon the data, and it was wrong. It was totally wrong. And we can now see, we making that pivot and it not working, we can now look and see what was actually happening. But it was something that we had to test it to know. Yeah. So
is there anything you can share about that, or is it, or no, anything more detail about that you want to share?
So basically we thought that the majority of our business was coming from word of mouth and from our groupies page. And we thought that our Google ads Facebook ads that we were pushing out top of funnel. It was supposed to be a prospecting ad. We felt like it's not actually hitting anyone new, right? And so we were frustrated. We're like, why are we spending all this money when we're not getting new customers from it? It's everything we're doing internally. And so we were like, all right, we need to pivot. And so we started, looking at doing things completely different. Well, what we realized after doing that and then it failing, is that what was happening, if we weren't accounting for the fact that what was happening is people actually were joining the group pretty quickly after getting an ad, converting to a groupie, and then buying through that process that we only thought was happening organically.
Okay. Interesting.
And so we realized like, oh crap, it was actually working exactly the way we wanted it to. We just didn't have the data to prove that. Yeah. And so we made a bad decision off of it. So now, how do you know, right?
That's interesting. Yeah. So I'm just to remap the buyer journey to like add a step, right? So not everybody goes direct, but they want to join the community. And then, I'd imagine that's not super uncommon because you see something on social and you may buy, but you're probably gonna.
What is everyone else saying about it?
It used to be, exactly. What do other people think about it? Am I going to read reviews?
Let's see if there's a group.
Yeah, join the email list, which still happens sometimes. But
But the group will give you the real feedback from real people. And I think that's what's so valuable about it and why people are attracted to these Facebook groups. And I don't do that. So I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm going to go and see if there's a group for this brand. Yeah. And so it wasn't in my cognitive understanding. And so I made a bad decision, but welcome to business.
That's great. So. Cool. Any last thoughts on either anything to people who were starting, like imagine 10 years ago, 11 years ago, anything that you wish you knew back then that from then, for someone who's thinking about, should I start this thing or I've started something and I just don't know what to do with it.
So I would say, don't give up. Most businesses fail because they give up. So listen to your customer or your client, whoever it is, and really take their feedback to heart.
Yeah.
And make changes to that. And then, be quick to adapt. I think that's the key in success to business, is that the ones who can see what's happening in the market and change quickly to that, stay in business. Yeah. The ones who are like, no, this is who we are. And this is, and they just stick to that. They end up, going the way of the dodo bird. So
if I can rephrase, it's almost like stay core to the brand principles. Those never change.
Right.
But the way that you communicate and reach and react and respond within there's a lot of flexibility within that. So you have to be really flexible in that area, but necessarily don't violate any of the core brand principles.
Well, I'll give you a good example of Go Forth Goods. So in the beginning, we just thought of ourselves as a men's brand. All the products we created in the beginning were all men's products. And we created one leather tote bag because someone locally in the community was like, hey, could you make me a tote bag? And we were like, yeah, sure. And so we made a tote bag, right? Which is now our number one selling product still to this day. And so what happened is if I would have been like, well, I don't want to make women's products, I just want to make men's products. We wouldn't be where we're at today. Yeah. And so I was able to see, oh, wow, these women's products are selling really well. We should make more women's products. And so we started making more women's products and it was wildly successful, but it wasn't what I had in my mind that Go Forth Goods was going to be. And so that's what I mean by being able to adapt, change, whatever is. You've got to be able to see in the market, but it also, it could be, things like, Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster, went out of business because they weren't able to adapt and change and keep pace with the market that went to DVDs. And now eventually it's all streaming. So the businesses that stay, you can be a gigantic company, but you've got to be able to adapt and change when you need to.
Yeah, so, that's a great example because getting into women's product, different market, doesn't necessarily violate any of the core principles that you talked about. It's still going to be handmade, still going to be craftsman, still going to be long lasting, all that kind of stuff too. So that's great. Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining. This is super interesting, and we always appreciate connecting with you. And thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, I was glad to be here. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun.
Cool. Thanks.